The U.S. House of Representatives has overwhelmingly voted in favor of introducing the Intelligence Authorization Act, new laws designed to counter Russian influence. And the Senate is expected to follow suit when its turn comes to vote on it.
And it doesn't stop with terrorism. We also face tremendous threats from China and Russia.
We must not disregard the growing threat posed by Russia, aimed at countering Russia's destabilizing efforts, including those targeting elections.
But just how new is it? Many similarities can be drawn with a law passed in the 1950s called the McCarran Internal Security Act. Yes, decades ago, when the Cold War was in full swing, U.S. media and politicians got Americans worked up about the so-called Russian threat.
It will be your responsibility, comrades, to purge the minds of the reactionary Americans so that they will welcome the enlightened Soviet system.
The old law formed a subversive control board to work against the objectives of the world communist movement. The new law calls for a committee to be formed to combat the influence of the Russian Federation over governments and peoples. And just like the old one, it says it's intended to counter disinformation, front groups, and covert broadcasting.
Lying doesn't mean the same thing to a real communist that it means to you and me. They recognize no such things as human dignity or any rights of the individual.
This is a flashback to a time when people who criticized the American government or didn't repeat the standard foreign policy talking points were labeled traitors and foreign agents. One person who was labeled as a Russian agent was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Now masquerading behind the humanitarian banners of civil rights, is contributing tremendous momentum to the communist plans to take over the United States.
If passed, the move will heavily restrict the activities of Russian diplomats. They'll be forbidden from leaving a 25-mile radius around the Russian embassy unless they have explicit permission from the FBI.
There is an hysteria going on in the United States right now, and RT has reported on it because RT is also in the middle of the storm, as is the Ron Paul Institute, which I represent. We've been outed as Russian agents, pushing Putin's view of what America should be. Of course, interestingly enough, President Obama said not long ago that the American elections accurately reflect the will of the American people. So we wonder how long it'll be before he's named as a Russian agent as well. This is, I'm making a joke, but this just shows how the hysteria comes through in America. It's just simply a witch hunt. There's absolutely no basis for going back to this 1950 mentality.
Now, much of the McCarran Internal Security Act of 1950 was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. But what about the new law? Millions of Americans thought the hysteria was over decades ago, but it looks like it's very well alive inside the corridors of Congress. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.